everyone, and welcome to a podcast from the Saint Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. My name is Anne DeSantis, and you can learn about us on our website at nonnatus.org. And with me, I have Mr. Larry Peterson, and he is a Catholic writer and author. He's also a very good friend of the religious order that represents us, the Mercedarian Friars. And this will be a two-part series. During the first part, Larry's going to talk to us about his faith journey and also the virtue of perseverance, which has helped him very much in his own life. And when we come back for part two next time, he will continue his faith journey, but we're also going to learn about some endeavors that are in the works and that you all might be interested in hearing about, because they do involve the religious order, the Mercedarians. And to learn more about them, you go to orderofmercy.org. So without further ado, I want to bring on my guest. Larry, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure, Ann. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. You have a beautiful faith journey that you have shared with me, and you really do. It's incredible that you have persevered through many difficulties, but you've maintained a very deep faith in your Catholic faith. And so I thought, maybe can you start us out with where did your faith journey begin, and where did that lead you, and how did perseverance help you to get through the tough times?
Well, I never really thought about this, but my faith journey began when I was like 4 to 6 weeks old, and they took me to a church and had me baptized, and I had no clue. I think the first time I was probably aware of anything was when he put that little white suit on me when I was making my first Holy Communion. But I was born and raised a Catholic. I'm a cradle Catholic, and it stuck. And there are five. I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and it stuck in different ways to all 5 of us, because our folks died when we were pretty young. And let me think. I mean, Mom died when she just turned 40 years old. She had leukemia and she died. And I was like just turned 16. My sister's 13. My brothers were 10, 6, and 2. Johnny he wasn't even 2 yet. And it was chaos. and Grandma lived with us, and she kind of lost her mind a little bit. Yeah. Anyway, and as far as my faith journey itself, I mean, I've been blessed with the fact that I've never really wavered in my faith. I don't think it's been there to hold me up, and I've always been able to turn to it. I never got angry at God or anything like that. I've heard people say that, things have happened, and why did God let this happen? Why did he let my wife die? Why my daughter get killed and that, or let's go, why did it get cancer? And I've never had that kind of issue, I've turned to God when I needed him, and I wasn't really in doubt of him. So I guess I'm blessed then, right? Because some people have had, so anyway, and then that's how it went, and then it was pretty shaky. We were in the South Bronx. It's all blue collar neighborhood, and we were the talk of the town because Dad, he was an engraver. He had his own little business, and he spent a lot of time with Mom in the hospital, and everything went south for him, and Grandma blamed him for her being dead. And we remember that, but you don't look at, when you're a kid, you don't look at your parents as people. They're parents, and you don't, so that was Dad and that was Grandma, and you didn't look at them like they were other people, And so she really hated him. She blamed him for killing her. It was really crazy. And he went out and he started drinking a lot. And then Grandma died like within 2 years. She had a stroke and she died in my arms on a Saturday night. It was an amazing event, because she was curled up and holding on to a cabinet door, and I was able to. I never forget this. It's vivid in my mind. And I dragged her inside and laid her on a bed, and we prayed together. And she was able to say an Our Father and an act of contrition before she went into a coma. It was amazing. And the priest came and anointed her, and then she passed away. But that was like within 2 years, and then Dad died 2 years later. and he drank a little too much, and he got acute attack of pancreatitis, and he was dead the next day. So there we were, the five of us, and I'll tell you what, we had nothing. It was crazy. There was no insurance. We found out the rent was 3 months behind, and the electric was going to be turned off. All of this stuff was really like shocking to the kids. We weren't ready for this kind of thing. Anyway, things worked out. I don't remember how, but they did. And I was in charge. I was left in charge, and onward and forward we paraded, and we hung okay, and we did it. I mean, I was going to go to Fordham University back then, but that went out. I went to work in construction, and with the ironworkers in New York City. So and it was okay, but it wasn't what I had planned on. But I put food on the table, and we took care of everybody, and it all worked out. And then and I had a good woman in my life, Loretta. We knew each other from grade school, and we started going out in high school, and she stuck with me through all the thick and thin of this, with her family not very happy about it, to tell you the truth. They didn't want to see her stuck with me with all this baggage I had. But she hung tough, and, we were married 35 years. She passed away 18 years ago. Actually, Easter Sunday was her 18th anniversary of her passing. She had a number of things wrong, and she died of melanoma. And and then I was married 4 years later, and to Marty, I was in St. Vincent de Paul for many years. And she joined, and she was there, and she was a widow for like 6-7 years. Anyway, we joined forces, and then she got lymphoma and died 4 years ago. So there have been a lot of things happen.
Yes.
Anyway,
you are a model of perseverance. You really are. I mean, when we had our first conversation, I guess it was maybe a month or so ago, or maybe a little more than that.
Mm-hmm.
I was really impressed with your faith. Now, you said you were given that faith as a baby, but you know what? You never took it for granted. That's what it was, is that you stayed on the walk with the Lord. So I just want to congratulate you, because you're a real role model. You're a role model for people, for those who are like feeling kind of like, where is God? Why did God allow this or that to happen in my life, right? Because what our foundation does is we help a lot of families who are in crisis. And a lot of times when people do go through something very challenging or trying or even tragic, sometimes they lose their faith. So I think
they do.
You are a very good role model for that, and how you had the death of a parent at a very young age, and then you just described was it your grandmother, and then of course then you had your 2 wives also. So let's talk about, how did God speak to you during those times? Because obviously the Holy Spirit came upon you when you lost certain people in your life, and God came to you and really stood by you during those times to help you to get through. And you stood by him too.
That was more, I think that's more to this than God coming to me. I didn't think he left me. I never thought he left me. So when I was in trouble, I turned to him. I didn't say like, hey man, where are you? Why'd you do this to me? I never did that. I never thought about this until...
You never blamed him?
No, and I've told people, I says, God doesn't give you cancer, and God doesn't kill you with a car, and God doesn't do those things. People do those things. And, and I've always told folks, listen, maybe your wife or your child, God loved them so much. He was tired of seeing them going through a lot of stuff, and he wanted them home with him. And they're perfectly happy with him now. And you got somebody up there watching out for you. So, and God didn't drive that car or drink and get drunk and do those things and shoot you or beat you up or whatever, It's that's my attitude about it. And you can't blame you can't blame others, really. You can't blame like God for giving people. My mother didn't get leukemia because God said, "Hey, you know what, there, Lily, we lost a daughter. Our 4th child was a stillborn daughter, and that was the whole adventure too. Because,
sorry,
but that's a long time ago already, and she was sick. Loretta was 6 months pregnant with her, and when we lost her, but But it was a chaotic few weeks because the hospital, it was a Catholic hospital, I won't say where, and then they said they lost her. And then they told us we never had a baby there. What happened was they used it. This may sound weird, but she was, if the child was 2 pounds, they considered it like a person, I guess. Under 2 pounds, they could just take it and slice and dice and experiment, and which they did. And then they denied we had a baby there, and it was a crazy month. But anyway, on the Feast of Saint Teresa, they found her, and we had, we had her taken by a funeral home, put her in a little white casket, put her in a limousine, drove her up to, and she was buried with my parents.
Oh, well, that's really wonderful to hear because, I myself, and of course our foundation, I mean, we are definitely rock solid pro-life. So it's beautiful to hear that you did that and that you had.
Well, her name is on the bottom of the stone. My mother, father, and grandmother were all buried there, but Teresa Mary's name is on the bottom of the stone. So she was a person, and she did a lot, and she did exist, and her name is there to prove it. Because they and my friends in this Catholic hospital tried to deny it, and anyway, they didn't get away with it. Anyway.
You have honestly, I love your charism of deep faith. And not only has God, well, you said you stuck with God, right? And God was always there for you, but you always recognized that. And I think that's a key thing for people who are in crisis from our foundation, the people that we help. I think you're just a very good role model and someone that they can learn from. So take us on the journey then. So obviously you had your children, you did have 2 wives that did pass away. What has life been like for you since that time? Now you lost your second wife 4 years ago, I think you said.
She died 4 years ago. Yeah. The anniversary of her passing was Palm Sunday, and the anniversary of Loretta's passing was Easter Sunday. There were and mass was said for them each day. Loretta's mass was Easter Sunday. That was a great day for her to have a mass said, and the St. Marty's was Palm Sunday. So it was kind of a weird week for me because a lot of memories were churned up, but onward and forward, And Sundays. What I do on Sunday, I'm an EMHC. People say Eucharistic minister. I'm not a Eucharistic minister. I'm an extraordinary minister of Holy Communion. Yes. In fact, there's an article in there I wrote. It's in Catholic Stand this week. It was in it was in there the 14th or the 3rd Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. Today's Wednesday. He was in yesterday. Okay. Today's the 14th. Today's my brother Bobby's birthday, actually. Anyway, he passed away 15 years. Well, no, 14 years ago. He had just turned 53. Anyway, but yeah, right now I've never been alone. This is the first time in my life I've really been alone. My kids live in by. I'm good. My kids all live within 15 minutes of me here. My grandkids. But as far as when the day is over, I'm by myself, and I've never experienced that before. And it's kind of, I don't really like it. I really don't. I kind of miss having somebody.
Do you? Yeah. Well. I think honestly, I have to say you are a real blessing to this foundation, and also to the Mercedarians who are so close to us. And I'm very grateful for you and for your faith, because that's what you're doing on this show. You're sharing your faith, and you're also sharing something that you have in your heart, and that's a real love of God and a real love of the church and a real love of your Catholic faith that's gotten you through so much. If there's somebody listening, if I could, Larry, if there's somebody listening right now and thinking, I don't have his faith, I want his faith. There's somebody listening. I know there is, because this podcast is for families and individuals who have lost loved ones, who have lost faith, and who really want to move forward in their lives. Would you have any words of wisdom to them to get through life?
Oh my God.
And, yeah, what would words of wisdom, especially if they lost a spouse? We have a lot of people that have either, whether it's through divorce or separation or annulments, or a loss of a loved one through a death. We have had many clients and many people we've worked with that have undergone many losses in their lives.
Any advice? Nobody's really ever asked me for any advice. You know, you turn to God, you give it to God. When things get really bad, that's when you let go and let God. So if you're blaming God or feeling sorry for yourself, stop it. It may sound harsh, but really, stop it. God has a plan for you, probably. If somebody's out there listening, they have a plan for you. You just got to go trust in God, give it to God, pray about it, and it will happen. You know, it just that's all I can say. There's no easy answer to this. You know, there's their husbands and wives. There's a lot of them that have been blessed with a good marriage where they both love each other and they give of each other. And you know, God made. It's one of the best things He ever made was love, I think.
Oh yes.
And if a man and a woman actually love each other and they share that with each other, it's a beautiful thing. But too many times it's one-sided, and that's when the trouble starts. But if somebody's in that situation and they've lost a spouse, and I can say that was me, it's hard to do. It's hard. You know, when I came home from Marty's funeral and I shut the door behind me, I was standing here by like, oh damn, I'm by myself. It was the weirdest thing, you know. And because I've always had somebody, you know, even when Loretta passed, she was home. My daughter Mary was there. She had just had a baby, and she was staying with us. And my son Billy had surgery on his knee, and he was there. And there've always been people, you know. And that was the first time I was really by myself, and I didn't like it, you know. So, but you got to turn to God, and God is your strength. And it isn't like He's gonna pick you up with His hand and hold you in the air or anything. You can things happen that you know He's there. There are signs and all this other stuff, you know. And
yes.
You get messages all the time. And I've had things, but I can't get into that. I've had some things happen a little out there, and they're really involved with God. And maybe someday I'll write about them. But you know, I really feel bad if people don't trust God or blame God. I hear that so much.
Oh, yes.
How could God let this happen to me? God doesn't do mean things to people. God loves all of us. He loves everybody unconditionally, individually. And if something happens to you, turn to Him and trust Him. You know, in my book, my one book is called The Priest and the Peaches. It was about us after my dad died, and 5 of us were on our own. And in that book, I wrote about how God, you know, you imagine your father who loves you here. If you have a good, caring, loving father, well, God the Father loves you 1,000 gazillion times more than that. So don't ever blame Him. He's there for you. See, now I'm blessed to feel like that.
Yes,
I think because a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't.
That's right. I love your joy, and I know that it's been challenging and hard. You have had a lot of losses of people that you've loved, especially your 2 wives, and then you mentioned your daughter, and then also the little baby too, your little daughter. So I just thank you so much for sharing with us, because, you know, when someone shares their heart, they're also sharing their faith too. And so I think it's beautiful that you've used the gifts and talents that you have, not only to write and share your faith, but also your heart with them in all that you do, because I know that you do that. So let's talk a little more about what we're going to discuss and unpack during our next podcast, which is going to be your gift of writing, and also the work that you're going to be doing and that you are doing for the Mercedarian Friars. But let's talk about, like, a little bit before we end this show, is what do you love the most about writing, and what do you love about writing about things to do with the Catholic faith?
Well, I do like to write about the Catholic faith because there's so much hostility towards it today nowadays. You know, I mean, we have a statistic of over 70% of Catholics do not believe in the real presence. I mean, isn't that the whole enchilada for us? You know, Christ truly present. in the body and blood of Christ truly present. And, it's the priest. I just wrote a piece about that. It was, I call it the holy we hit the trifecta with the Last Supper, because you had the priesthood, the sacrament of holy orders, right? And then we had the body and blood of Christ in the Holy Eucharist. We had these three things come together in that one. I mean, you can't have any of it. You can't have any of that without you can't have, the priest stands in persona Christi when he says the Mass, when he offers the consecration, right? He's standing in the shoes of Christ. And the bread and wine is becoming the body and blood of Christ. And then we, the people, we offer it to God the Father, who gives it back to us in the risen Christ as his return gift. So we have this like incredible thing happening, and nobody seems to get it.
That's right.
Some people do get it, but like, and a lot of the priests don't even get it. I don't think some of them. The way they go through the Mass sometimes at the consecration, it's like, what are you doing, man? It's like, what do you, it's just, that's me. I get caught up in them moments, and we have an awful lot of, the gift we have in our faith is unbelievable. And, and people will say, why do you got to be Catholic to have we have the real thing, the real presence. Why Methodists and Presbyterians and non-denominationals, if you believe in Jesus, you believe in Jesus. Well, you don't have the real thing, folks, like it or not. And I wish some of the priests would say this and teach the people this, because we have this. And it might draw more people back to the church, and it might draw non-Catholics to the church if they would talk about this incredible gift we have of the Holy Eucharist. Because it is in your face, really, and they just don't seem to understand. But you got to reach out to understand a little bit. If you reach out and go to God and you reach out a little bit to him, he's going to grab you back. But if you're going to keep turning your back on him, well, you can only do so much. So we make our choices here. And, too many of us think we're smarter than everything. And,
well, the gift of our church, good point too, is the Holy Eucharist, the true body and blood of our Lord and Savior. So thank you for bringing that up. And
just the Eucharistic miracles, if you look them up around the world that have happened, there's, it's like a quick example. Most of these miracles that happen where the host, they put it in a cup of water, that they dropped it or whatever, and a week later there's blood in there, or the Lanciano, the Shroud of Turin. It all seems to work out to be AB positive blood from heart tissue. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it really is.
Isn't that amazing?
I've heard that before, and that is amazing. Would you be able to recommend to people listening, is there a particular website or any place that you think they can learn more for people who want to?
I can't, off the top of my head, I can't, but I will for the next time.
Okay, yeah, well, let's keep an eye on our part 2, because we will direct you there to talking more a little bit about the Eucharistic miracles.
And I wish really, just some of our good priests from the pulpit would get up and talk about these things, because especially for kids, the kids, this is very impressionable to the kids. If they were told these things, they should know it, and like Our Lady of Guadalupe on Juan Diego's tilma, how they came off of that with music. Did you ever hear the music?
Yeah, I think I have before online. I heard it on. That's right.
It's it's on YouTube. It's amazing.
Yeah,
they turned it sideways, and they wrote music to the dots on his tilma, and it came out to this incredible music. So this is heavenly music. It's in our face. Isn't that something?
It's amazing. There's so much in our faith. I think with the Catholic Church, there's never a lack of learning, right? There's always
we have 2,000 years of incredible history of miracles and things that have happened that are totally inexplainable. In fact, one of the stories for this little adventure I'm having with the Mercedarians is about Our Lady of Benaria. I'll talk about that next time. But that's it. That's a great little story in itself,
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about. Unfortunately, we'd have to end in a couple minutes. So I would like to invite everybody to please do join us for part 2 of this series with interviewing Mr. Larry Peterson, Catholic writer and author. He's such a pleasure. And I have to say again, as I said throughout the show, that I love your faith and your devotion to the Catholic Church, and also to your own personal devotion to God, Christ, and the Eucharist. So thank you so much.
Well, it's been fun talking to you. I'm looking forward to our next one, and yeah, this is great.
Yes, this is awesome. So again, join us here at Saint Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. My name is Anne DeSantis. We'll see you next time for part 2 with Larry Peterson. God bless. Hi, and welcome to a podcast from the Saint Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. My name is Anne DeSantis. It's great to be here with you on this day. I have a returning guest to our podcast. His name is Larry Peterson. Larry is a Catholic writer, originally from the New York City area. And so I want to just welcome him and thank you so much, Larry, for joining us again.
I'm glad to be here again. Good to talk to you.
It sure is. And I would ask for people who are listening to this podcast to go back and listen to part 1 of Larry Peterson with the Saint Raymond Nonnatus Foundation, because he has an amazing story of faith. And that's an understatement, really. I mean, I could listen to that part 1 of the first podcast a couple of times, because it's really incredible to hear the gift of his faith and how he has impacted others in his life. So, Larry, maybe we could just recap from the last podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll pick up from where we left off on the last one.
Where do we left? Actually, hearing you say that this is like, it's quite the story, and I'm inspirational. It gives me like, I get like, what are you talking about? It's just, anyway, just let me get my thoughts together here. Where do you want me to start?
Well, if you could tell our audience just a little bit about you, though, for those who didn't get to hear the first one, a little bit about you're a man of faith. I know that you have had challenges, but through it all, you kept your Catholic faith.
Yeah, I'm a cradle Catholic, and like I said, I didn't realize I was Catholic till I guess I made my first Holy Communion when I had the little white suit on. Because when you're brought into bed to get baptized as an infant, you don't know what's going on. Anyway, they did have a big party for me, I heard, like years later, but I wasn't aware of that either. But anyway, and I'm the oldest of 5 kids. We lost our folks when we were pretty young. Most of this stuff has been spoken about in the first podcast. And we were on our own, and my life changed dramatically, actually. I was supposed to go to Fordham University. I even had a Regent scholarship in my pocket, but I had to go to work because I was in charge of the family, and we needed money. We didn't have anything, and we all made out okay. We survived, and it was not easy, and everybody did okay, and all went forward, and we moved to Florida back in 1979. I came down with MS when I was about 34 years old. I was stumbling around, and I didn't know why, and it took them 2 years to figure it out. And I was working in the building trades in New York as an iron worker, and it was not a very good thing to be doing when you were stumbling around like a drunk. So finally, I had to leave that business, and they just diagnosed me with MS about 1980, 81. And that's a remarkable story too. If you'd like to hear it quickly,
please do. Yeah.
They told me that I was going to be blind, incontinent, and in a wheelchair. I was like 34 years old with 3 little kids, and I was like, I don't think so, Anyway, this is a Saint Teresa story.
Love to hear.
My wife's birthday, 1981, was January 8th. I came out and on the table, on the dining room table, she had all of these cards, all these birthday cards. And then most of them were for people she didn't even really know. And all of them had roses on them. All of them. There were like at least a dozen. And she said, "You're going to be fine. Look at this." I did a novena to Saint Teresa. And I got all of these cards. Makes me choke up on my birthday. And I started going to Easter seals, and after about 3 or 4 months, I was doing better and better, and I was doing better, and I got rid of my quad canes, and I was using a cane, and then I can't remember how long. My daughter was starting middle school, and I got out of the car for a teacher conference, and I had the cane, and I threw the cane away. And I said, "You better not do that. You know, you're going to be walking around." I said, "I'm not using that thing no more, you know." Anyway, so I'm walking around the school, and it was a lot of walking, and I started stumbling around in the hallways because I was a little too weak to do that yet, you know. So people were looking at me like I had half a load on. But anyway, it all worked out okay. I'm getting along. People don't even know I have MS, really. They can't tell unless I tell them, really. I have some issues, you know, numbness. I lose my balance sometimes, but otherwise I'm okay. And to me, it's like old news. But that's what happened with that. And I attribute it really to that novena to Saint Teresa. And our stillborn baby was named Teresa Mary.
Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, the way I look at it is that how, even though you have had some things in your life that some people would say, oh, it's a bad deck of cards or something, you know what I'm saying? But you know what? You took every situation in your life and you trusted God, and God was there for you. And like you, with the story you just told about Saint Teresa is incredible. I mean,
yeah, really.
And how God intervened, and that, and yes, you still have MS, but look at your, you know, how many years ago it's been, so many years, and you're still getting around okay, and praise God.
Not an issue. Yeah, praise God is right.
Not an issue. God is so good. And then, of course, you told us on the first podcast that you were married and had children, and then, you know, unfortunately, your first wife had died, and then you were married again, and just, I think it was in the last few years, right, that your second wife.
She died 4 years ago.
4 years ago. Yeah. But I could be wrong, but you can confirm this. I believe that both of your two wives are praying for you in heaven, based on how God has intervened in your life since those times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I got friends up there, you know.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. Really. But I think you're a wonderful, wonderful example to us. I have to say that this foundation is for families in crisis, right? Catholic families who are in crisis.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and you are a wonderful example to them as someone who has overcome so much through the help of your Catholic faith and your trust in God and your the sacramental life of the church, and really just your daily prayers, right? Your daily prayers and living out God's will every single day. So I just commend you for that. And I know that you're a humble person, and you say, I can't believe, you know, this is me, you know, but you know,
really, and I'm starting a weekend, and he's listening to this. So I'm like, but anyway, it is what it is. I never thought about it, like, you know, and being presented to me in this way. So I just have to, I guess it's all true. So I'll just listen to it and accept it as is.
That's right. That's right. And we're so grateful for you. And so let's talk a little bit also about, you've been a caretaker before. You understand things like cancer and Alzheimer's too. We do have an audience of people who are dealing with sick spouses or parents or kids. You know, people have kids that are sick as well. I wondered if you had anything to say to them, because you've dealt with so much of all these issues.
Well, you got to be, you know, really, you got to have faith. First of all, really, you know, the greatest gift we ever receive from God is our faith. It's a gift. It's very fragile. You can lose it very quickly. You know, you're growing up and you may go to church every week, every Sunday, and then you get a little older. All of a sudden, you're 19 or 20, and you miss a few days, and you don't get hit by a bolt of lightning. So then, the next thing you know, you miss it a week or 2 weeks and a month and a year. But you can lose your faith. But if you've been baptized in the Lord, it's always in there. It's always got a little spark, and it can get resurrected. And so I didn't have time to lose my faith. I needed it too much. So anyway, but that's it. The foremost is you have to have faith and trust in God. You got to let God, and then take it from there, you know. And then and one of my favorite cliches is always, and I use this with somebody today. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow's a mystery. Today's a gift. That's why we call it the present. So God gave us a present. God gave us a present, and it's today. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and yesterday is over with. No matter what has happened, it's over with. Now, you can dwell on it or be miserable about it or get depressed about it, or you can try to move forward. And that's what you got to do. And I try to do that. I really do. And because
It's
otherwise,
obvious.
what's done is done, right? You can't change a darn thing. And that's all there is to it. And I mean, I know there's things that happen. You lose loved ones. It's hurtful. It's painful. But still, you're alive. God has you here breathing. You know, I bring communion to a lot of elderly folks, late 90s. You know, it's one of my great pleasures in life. I do that every Sunday. And some of them will say, Larry, why does God have me here? And I said, like the one lady, Evelyn, she's 98, you know.
Oh,
she's
God
from
bless.
New Jersey. We communicate like on the same wavelength, you know. And I said, Evelyn, God wants you here as a prayer warrior. That's why you're here. There are people in purgatory that need your prayers. So you can sit in that chair, flick on EWTN. They got a rosary on a couple of times a day. Do that. She says, you think so, Larry? I said, yeah, do that, you know. And I tell other people that. So don't be thinking like, oh, why am I here? I'm old. Nobody cares. It's God has us here until he wants us. You know?
Man.
That's the way it is.
Three more. Yeah,
That's the
you're
way
a
it
real
is.
light
So
for our foundation. You're a good mentor, and I hope that people who are listening in our audience, I hope that they listen to this again, because just remember that, you know, all of us have had strikes against us during life, whatever it could be, health reason, it could be something spiritual or psychological, right? There's all kinds of things, loss of jobs, whatever it is. So wherever you are and whatever your difficulty is, hang on to that faith. And that's Larry's story.
Really.
There's a beautiful story of someone who trusted God. And even to this day, he's still trusting God. And I think you're just a wonderful guest for us. I hope we can do something like this again at some point.
Sure.
This series, yeah. So let's talk also now, if you could, a little bit about your writing. I know you're a writer with Catholic Stand, and I know you're also a writer with, is it Alatecia?
Yeah. Oh, it's Alatea.
Alatea, so you're with those two publications. And tell us about that.
I post,
writing.
I got my own blog site, but it's really, I got to get somebody to help me fix that up a little bit. It's a little out of date. And okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Tell you what?
No, just tell us more about your writing, because you're a really good writer. You are.
Oh,
just based on my knowledge so far.
Well, yeah, a few people have told me that, but I never had no training as a writer. I said, well, I did have 12 years of Catholic education, and I was always, I had the Ursuline nuns for 8 years, and then I had the Marist brothers for 4 years. So they taught us a little differently, I think, than they're teaching the kids nowadays.
Yeah.
And we did learn a lot about English and writing and stuff like that, but I always liked to write, and I really didn't. When I wasn't doing too good with the MS, you know, I was trying to figure out a way to make a few bucks, and there's a local newspaper that I took an article over to this. This is another good story, actually. It was called the Pinellas Park News, you know, and the guy who owned it, his name was Judson Bailey, and he was an old timer who had worked for ABC and all these things, you know. And I said, you want to read some of my stuff? So he said, I'll call you, you know. He had a big cowboy hat on. He had whitish red blonde hair. It was long down over his shoulders. He must have been 80. It was kind of funny. He was smoking a corncob pipe. He had boots on with his feet up on the desk. And in his office, everybody was scurrying about, and it really was, I wish I had a picture of it. But anyway, he called me up. He called me Petey. Petey, come in here. I want to talk to you. I went over, and he says to me, listen. He says, I don't know where you came from. He says, but you can write something for me every week. I don't care what it is. Just bring it over to me. I'll give you $25.
Oh, boy. Wow.
So I said, okay, Mr. Bailey, no problem. So I did that, and that's just how it worked out. He told me, if I ever had a mentor in anything, it was him, because he said to me, listen, Petey, I'm going to give you some advice. He said, you got your own unique style. Don't change it for anybody. Just do what you do and just leave it at that. I said, okay, good. And that's as far as a writer, I followed his advice, and I kind of stayed true to myself. And that's it, you know. And then, of course, my faith is in my writing, too. You know, my book, I come from the Bronx. I work construction in New York. Trust me, there's some tough guys there. And some tough language. And you won't find any of that in any of my books. Now, my books, The Priest and the Peaches and the Demons of Abaddon and all, there's a lot of hard stuff going on there, but you're never going to find curse words or anything like that, anything.
Sure.
And I used to all say them true to myself that way. And I just, most of my stuff over the past number of years, Marty got sick. I've been contributing to Alatea for about 5 years now. And I've been in Zenit and, in Catholic Stand, I started last year. I only posted them once a month. Alatea is, maybe 6-7 times a month. Oh, no, maybe more than that. Maybe 5-10 times a month. I don't know. It depends. But, and that's where I'm at. And I got to get my books republished because the guy I had, he hurt his back. And anyway, that's a long story. But right now they're in kind of limbo. But that's, but writing, I got thousands of articles that I've written, and mostly are religious. Anyway.
Amazing. Well,
what else you want to know?
yeah, there's so much. If our audience would like to know where to read some of your articles, where would they, or your books or articles, where would they go? If you can direct them, that would be great.
Well, my books right now I got to get them re-up. I've had my former publisher take them out and give me my rights back to them. I have to get them republished. And I will let you know in the next couple of weeks because I'll have to maybe self-publish it myself or whatever. Because they're pretty good, actually. It's, as a novelist, you really need a sort of a small contingent of people to assist you. So if you have a regular publishing company behind you, they have that. If you're doing it on your own, it's a very, very tough task. Marketing and promotion and all that stuff is a whole other thing besides the actual writing. Then you got writing and editing and going over and rewriting, and so I didn't have that luxury, so to speak. But somebody should grab that one of these days, because that first one, The Priest and the Peaches, the older folks loved that book. It was amazing. The older folks of 50 and over, I was surprising because it was evaluated as a fiction for young adults, YA fiction.
Oh, wow.
And I never knew why that, because it was about 5 kids. But the story, it was about 5 kids, but the story, took place in the mid-60s, and people really liked it, the older folks. So anyway, that's, so we'll see, maybe, but within the next year, with this next 6 months or whatever, I'll get them back up and running.
We'll keep an eye, and if you send it to us here, to me with the foundation, of course, we can share that out up to others if you have any links or anything.
Well, you know what I could send you if you like? I have I could send you a book. I don't have that. Would you want a book?
Well, sure. I mean, thank you.
Well, all right. Okay, I'll send you a book because I don't know. Well, I can't just send like an email. It's a whole manuscript. Yeah. Yeah, and I'll let you. You could. Okay, I will do that. Anyway, so onward and forward.
Yes, onward and forward. What an amazing journey you've had. So as we're coming a little close to the end of the podcast, I thought maybe if you can share a little bit about this book that you're working on for the Mercedarian Religious Order. I have to mention that for our audience that isn't aware that this foundation was actually founded by the Mercedarian Friars in 2015. And so with the charism, their fourth charism of their religious order is that willingness to give our lives for those in danger of losing their faith. And I know you know that too, Larry.
Yeah, and the guy that the foundation is named after is Saint Raymond Nonnatus, the man who wasn't born. And people don't, you say that, you say, what does that mean? And he's got a great story. Because his mom died and he was still in her womb, and his dad, I believe it was his dad, took his dagger and cut through her womb and got him out, and he was alive and he was okay, and he grew up to be a Mercedarian, and that's where Saint Raymond Nonnatus, and he was put in prison when he went to redeem. They were Christian captives. The Muslims were capturing a lot of the Christians, and they were keeping them in jail, and they were ransoming them off. And the Mercedarians, founded by Peter Nolasco, would go down. Peter Nolasco was left a lot of money by his dad, and he would go down there and ransom some of these Christians off. And then he met Raymond, I think it was Raymond Pennyfort, who told him he should do it as a Christian order, and he formed the Order of the Mercedarians, and they started doing it together and ransoming people. And Raymond Nonnatus went there, and the money he left himself in place of as a hostage to free other Christians because the money hadn't come. So he was in the jail. He was in the jail preaching the gospel and all to the Christians there, and some of the Muslims were even starting to convert. And his captors got ticked off at him. And as only humans can do to other humans, they took his lips and they thread them apart and they put a padlock through his lips to keep his mouth shut.
That's
and
right.
He lived like that for 8 or 9 months or maybe a year before he was freed by the Mercedarians. And then when he died, that's another part of his story. When he died years later, I forget where he was, but it was 3 different groups wanted his remains to be buried. Mercedarians were one. The city of the city was named, I can't remember offhand, Cardona. That's what it was, Cardona. Mm-hmm. And then the people in town, these 3 groups wanted him, so they decided they would put him on a donkey that was blind, or a mule was blind. I guess they put him in a little wagon and had the mule pull the wagon. Wherever the mule would go, that's where they would bury him. And the mule went right to his church where he went to as a child. And that's where the mule stopped. And that's where he was buried. It's kind of cool, to think of something like that.
Cool.
Yeah. So anyway, he's just one story of many that the Mercedarians have.
That's right. Thank you for that little education, because he's our patron saint, and
right.
Yeah, you're going to be now. I just want to give a little teaser there to our audience here that there is going to be an upcoming book by Larry Peterson about the Mercedarian religious order, and I'm very, very grateful that the foundation will be a little bit of a part of that too. He's going to talk.
Oh, definitely. So and you're going to have one of your little pieces of work in there.
That's right. And
in the book, right.
Order of
and
Mercy.
The third order, yeah. I don't know if you know Hope Sanford.
Yes, I do.
Okay, good. Well, I sat down with Hope about a week or so ago, and we did a little tete-a-tete, and I'm going to have a piece. She gave me a bunch of information about herself, because she's third order, and we'll put something there about her. My goal with the book is to try to, there's 800 years of history in the Mercedarians. That's a lot of years. But here's the thing. I don't believe people have changed like with, the natures we have, you're jealous, you're greedy, you're self-centered, or you're kind and loving and caring. Those kind of things are within us no matter what time of the Earth's age we were born, from Adam and Eve down. And all through this Mercedarian history, it's like that. And so the people today, emotionally and psychologically and all that kind of stuff, are no different than 800 years ago. It's just different cultures and different mores and different things like that. And so I'm trying to tie them all together, because the guys back 700 years ago in the 1200s compared to today, we're doing the same kind of thing. And today the redemptive work, a lot of it has to do with the saving souls and getting drugs and all that, saving people from that kind of thing, versus just actually rescuing them from the Muslims or whoever captured them, But they're still doing the same thing, and they're still working hard. And the goal is, the Mercedarians arrived in with Christopher Columbus on his second voyage. They came here. It was the first time they got to the Americas, and they arrived in Hispaniola in 1493, I think. But they never got out of Mexico. They never got to the United States until 1950, when 4 of them came here to escape Plutarco Calles from Mexico, who hated Catholics and had the Constitution revamped to Welsh religion, and they were killed. That's where the Cristero War comes from, in Mexico. And there's a movie about that, and Andy Garcia was in that movie. It's a pretty good movie. If you never, I can't remember the name of it.
Wow.
But anyway,
great topics for our next time. So,
okay. But anyway, yeah. So, anyway, they came here. There were 4 of them, and 3 of them. Martin Campagna was the main guy. The other 3 they tried to get bishops to accept them, and nobody would. So the three other guys accepted positions as parish priests. So they gave up their involvement with the Mercedarians. But Martin Campagna did not. He stayed a lone man, and he went around by himself, Minnesota to Texas. He wound up in Canada, and he kept writing bishops. And finally, they accepted him in Cleveland and Detroit. He went to Cleveland, and that's where they began. So we'll get into that another time. But that's how, and that's when they first started in the United States, and that was like 1915. So that's
history.
So it's only 100. So yeah, it's only 100 years they've been here, and there's only like 21 or 22, I think, in the United States, and nobody in the United States really knows who the Mercedarians are, and they got to get to know them. And I'm trying to tie this in the book. We'll make it readable for, a blue collar level, I call it, like me. I'm a blue collar kind of guy. Anyway, but that where anybody can read it, and maybe when they're done, they can pick it up and say, you know what, I'm going to call these guys. I got to talk to them. Like that, it isn't a textbook. It isn't highly educational or sophisticated. It's going to be simple read, and to inspire people to contact the Mercedarians and learn about them, so they can be spread around the United States. That's my goal. I'm trusting in Our Lady on this one, and I'll give St. Joseph a tug too, because he's a good friend of mine, and so that's what we're doing.
Well, I can't thank you enough. I mean, just hearing you talk. It's an answer to my own prayers as the director of this foundation, which is Mercedarian Apostolate. So thank you. I really thank you from my heart. I thank you not only for what you're doing for the Mercedarians, but thank you for sharing your story with us. I mean, it means so much to the people that are our audience, who are people who may be struggling with something to do with faith. So
thank you for your kind words. I mean, I never considered all that kind of stuff you mentioned, but anyway, it's all good, God has me. God has me. I really believe in my heart. God has me where He needs me, and He always had me where He needed me when He needed me there. So I'm going with the flow. And hindsight, it's 2020. But when I look back on my life, I think I tried my best to do what He wanted. I mean, I was throwing a lot of curveballs and sliders. So, but I hit a few of them.
We may just be to St. Lawrence. I know there is a St. Lawrence. You never know, right?
Yeah, sure. He's one of my favorites. He was a deacon, and they roasted him on the stick. Yeah.
Another new St. Lawrence. So everybody keep Larry Peterson in your prayers. He's a wonderful man. I'm very grateful to him for doing this podcast. And we'll have to come back again for part 3 at some point in the future, maybe when the book's a little closer to being published and things like that. But again, Larry, do you have any final words before we end?
No, keep the faith, trust in God. You never know what tomorrow brings. It can be happy. It can be, and you know what? Some people say, oh my God, well, this happened to me, or that. A good thing. I don't deserve it. If God wants you to have it, you'll get it. So if you come into a windfall, don't be upset about it. Enjoy it. And if some crap happens, you just got to embrace it and do the best you can with it.
Amen.
Simple as that. I can't be any more blue collar than that without, Anyway.
Thank you. God bless you, Larry. And we'll definitely be staying in touch. So I also invite all of you to connect with us on our website at nonnatus.org. And we also have a YouTube channel you can check out at Philly Nonnatus. So thank you again, Larry, and to our audience. We'll see you all next time. God bless.